content of this channel is for mature audiences. Parental discretion is advised. You're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. Please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell notification button. And please, feel free to share the video. Thank you.
What's cracking, y'all, man? I'm GG, man. What's happening? You're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. It's the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up with no chasers. Word. Before I get things started, man, you know what I'm saying? I want to give a shout out to all the haters out there, man. I know you hate watching, you know what I'm saying? Go ahead and enjoy yourself, man. Get you some popcorn, man. Kick your feet up. You feel me? Also, man, when you come in, man, hit that like button, subscribe button, and bell notification button so you can stay on top of things. Because if you ain't up on things, stay up on them, bro. And like I always do, man, I want to give a shout out to all the people who support the Green Gorilla channel, man. Shout out to Leon, Black Men Being Brutally Honest, Artisan MC, Dub Will, Mr. Good Dad, Dardar, Third Coast X, Lamar Johnson, Rais Moajid, Lee Ways. Big up. Big up to Roderick Jackson, Michael Ross, 63rd Samurai, Buchanan Kitten, Sherman Woe, Devon Loveridge, Ishmael Samad, The Watcher, Barnolas, Hostile Adept, and Red Pill Revelator. Big up. Big up to Kill the Gang, Dr. Thunder, BGS Ipmore, Jason Hales, Charles Finney, Interesting Thought, Bimrock, Black Swerve 404, Until I'm Not, Naomi Gary, and Jay Cleveland Green. Big up. The Toxic Masculinist, Pulpit 28, No Sleep, Broken Blade, Larry R, Seth Sun, Afro Troop, Show Me, Spain Man, Seven Coast Dojo, and Anthony Davis. Bless up, man. I'm Just Jules, An Honest Look, Ricky Dawson, Stefan, Truth 7360, Mr. Me Too, Call for President, Gold Professor, AKs and Curtains, H-Town, and Rogish the Billmonger. Big up. Adrian Thomas, Electrician 480, Binga, Cutting Up with the Jones, Zanko 1, D. Scott, Path Guy, Pete Rock, Aaron Peters, Vincent Lindsay, and Quiz the Poet. Big up. Black Wizard 80OS, Jazz Deck, Shadow Observer, Troy Warren, Mrs. KP Bailey, Alan Wiley, The Face, Life of Commerce, AI Apostle, Timothy Blewett, Jeffrey Speed, Marvin Battle Jr. Bless up. Adam, Ignaz Mouse, Black Uru, Dr. Tree, 77 Base X, Brian McMurray, Karen S, Charles Rogers, Rick Ross, Sandra Jean, and Charles Gilmore. Bless. Greg, Barry Little, Mr. Valentino, Cameron 87, Dr. Rock, Mark Swift, Odd Collar, Donald Watts, Coast Hotel, Old Soul Chief, and Mr. Blue Collar. Bless up. Also, TD Hip Hop Media, Drew Main, Mr. Heat, Sir Anthony, ML Law, Universal 178, Rasheed Barnes, Aaron Smith, DHA Double, Dr. Tiasan Johnson, Kalan Jakala, and W Pure 1. Big up, man. Can't forget the Mind Them, Kevin Samuels, David Carroll, and Forrest Windu, man. Brothers in another plane, man. Big up to them. Also, on the Patreon side, I want to make sure I give a shout out to Robert Wicks, Shine Language, Chris Flowers, Christopher Burton, Daxby, J Live, Rashawn Phillips Surles, Keith Bass, Nick, Albert C, Dr. Ben Vincent, I'm Delighted of My Father, Waffle Weave, Darnell Smith, Excalibur, Presuer Prisoner, Taz, Dragon 59, Jay Bailey, Mr. Michi, Mo Mal, and the Sangwa. Big up to all y'all, man, straight up. Y'all deserve a round of applause, man. Thank you so much for supporting the Green Gorilla channel on an ongoing basis, man. Word. And if you want to support the Green Gorilla channel on an ongoing basis, man, here's how you do it, and I'll be back.
What's good, everybody? I'm the G with a PhD, and you're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel, the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up, no chaser. Today, I want to introduce you to my new membership program that consists of 5 levels where you can invest in the Green Gorilla channel on a monthly basis and receive level-specific perks. Memberships are special because they improve the quality of the content of the channel and will help me to be able to keep the channel going. Now, to participate in the Green Gorilla Channel membership program, all you have to do is hit the join button, which is located right next to the subscribe button on my channel page. Now, for all of my subscribers who decide not to participate in my membership program, nothing will change. The content will keep coming the way it always has. Thanks for watching, and be careful out here, people. Bless.
All right, man, we back. I'm GG, man. You're tuned in to the Green Gorilla Channel. It's the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up with no chasers, man. You're here on a Saturday. A Friday. And I brought my bro, Admiral Smoke, along. What's cracking with you, dog?
What's going on, fam? I'm up here just chilling, man. You know what I'm saying?
Chilling. Get closer to that microphone if you can, bro. Just want to make sure we get that full microphone input.
Okay, yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, man. I'm just chilling. Like, you know how you got them days, man. I just feel easy, man.
You feel easy? Okay.
I feel easy.
Like Sunday morning, man?
Yo, fam. Sunday easy, man. Like you know what I'm saying? Like let me ride easy.
Oh damn! Easy Mo B.
Yeah, man. You
Easy
know what I'm
Mo
saying?
B.
Cruising in my 6'4".
For sure. Well, anyway, man, I'm pretty easy myself, man. I can't really, can't call it, man. Today we're talking about Kakistocracy, man. Anybody know what Kakistocracy actually means, man?
Man, it is the rule of or government or being ruled by people of the worst character or very incompetent. You know what I'm saying? That's what it means in simple terms, right? Being ruled by either incompetent people or the very worst of people, morally. That's basically what it is in a nutshell.
Right. You got the one brother here says it's a Kakistocracy. A Kakistocracy, man. Look, man, look, man, let's just be, look. So like we know we live in a country, man, where in the black community, it's governed and ruled over by women, man. And we get that. We understand the reasons why that is, but what inspired you to even think about a show related to this topic? What is it about, man? What's the meat?
When I think about America as a whole, right? Or even down to Black America, the things that we value, right? So if you look at America as a whole, right, Thomas Jefferson said the earth belongs to the living and not to the dead, right? Which means that, the previous generation before you, right, should pay their debts and solve all their problems and not kick the can down the road, right? So let's say for America, right, problems with slavery, race, national debt, past, the results of past wars, the state of the US dollar, for example, right? All of these things are things that if you're 19 right now, you didn't make any of these decisions, but yet and still you have to deal with the consequences of them, right? So shout out to young Sandog, right? When Sandog was just a pup, I remember turning on TV and watching the Taliban sit with Ronald Reagan, right? Because they were called freedom fighters and war heroes. And fast forward a few years later, right? Whatever it is, now Sandog finds himself suited and booted, getting ready to fight the same dudes that were freedom fighters, just a few years ago. Even down to our community, right? Hey, I'm a young green gorilla. I'm intelligent, right? I've read the Oxford Dictionary. I'm loaded with $20 words, and people are like, well, why are you talking white? Why are you acting like this, right? So even in our own community, right, things that, you would take things that any other culture would perceive as positive, or a very good thing, and then you're actually frowned upon because of it, frowned upon because you're intelligent, frowned upon because you dress, in a clean cut manner, or you function in a way that's, in a sense, what mainstream society would deem as, again, would deem as normal, but then you live in a community that encourages you, to be dysfunctional in a sense, because it itself is dysfunctional, right? So therefore, siphoning your self-esteem or your mental well-being in a sense until you're drugged down and you function just like it, right? So just me chilling, man, and observing things in my daily life and people that I talk to, is how I came up with this topic.
Yeah, man. I want to clarify something too. So, like recently, I made a video, and the video was about hip hop and the commodification of black pain. It could have very well been entitled, the commodification of black pathology, the commodification of black dysfunction. Could have been, a whole host of titles that I could have used in order to, label the video. But some people, assume that the goal of the video was to try to justify pathology or to justify dysfunction, or to give license or sanction to, thug culture. But, my inspiration for doing the video was the very people who set the wheels in motion, now get to sit back and watch it all unfold the way that they want it to, and now they get to commodify it. Like, if you look at what is happening in these inner city communities, man, this is some shit that was fabricated by a group of racists.
Yeah.
They intended this to occur. And now it's like the Hunger Games. You know what that movie is about, right? It's about a group of people, elitists, who have set out a series of games or a set of institutions whereby among the poorest of citizens have to fight to the death for the amusement of the elites. And it's a ritualistic, event. But the whole point of it is a group of people who are safe from those conditions get to sit back and invest in it with either their time, their money, their resources, and the people who are in it, immersed in it, it's not really a game to them. This is real life. You get what I'm saying? So my whole point in doing it was to demonstrate, look, man, that's a sick and twisted, kind of business model, man, where, like you get to sit back and look at the monkeys and the lions, the tigers and the bears. You get to watch them, eat each other alive for your amusement, but you set the wheels in motion. You started that. You did that. It was intentional. So, correct. That's the reason why. But here's the thing. An injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So if you allow a sore, a disease, a pathology to fester within your own social body, eventually that can come back and bite you in the ass.
Correct.
You understand? And one of the things that I wanted to make clear that, I'm kind of echoing Bonafide here. He said it's so sad what's happened to hip hop over the past 30 years. I remember hip hop in its glory years, the 80s, Hunger Games indeed. And so, like, again, man, I try to tell people, man, I remember Kid and Play, Heavy D, Eric and Parrish making dollars, LL Cool J, Cool Mo D. I mean, not to say that these were like the most absolute clean-cut rappers ever in the history of musicians, but I mean, they weren't glorifying murder and drug use. I mean, like, if you listen to a Heavy D record, where's the drug use? Still rocking, still jamming. You listen to a Chubb Rock record, where's the drug use? You listen to a Kwame record, Kid and Play record, Where's the drug use? I mean, it was still dope. It was still fly.
Yeah.
I mean, so the question is, why is degeneracy and decadence required to be part of authenticity, or is equated or identified with blackness at its core? That's the issue I got with it, right? And one of the main premises I tried to, interlace within the context of the video was black culture is not tantamount to or equivalent to thug culture, man. But enough white people promoting one particular area of black life and promoting it because they enjoy it. But the question then is, like, why do you enjoy this? Why are you amused by this? Why do you find this worthy of paying attention to in the way that you do? Why? Why is this the form of hip hop that you promote? Why? Why? Because we have models in the past that were still as popular, still as, so to speak, still as fly. But now this is all we have. A bunch of kids that, like kill each other and talk about doing dope. And not to say that, killing and murdering wasn't happening back then, because it was, okay? But now, even when like homicide has been on the downtick and drug use and sales have been on the downtick, now they promote it even more heavily. Like, why? But that's just something, like, that's part of Kakistocracy, man.
Yeah.
A group of decadent people who are allowing degeneracy to expand in the culture by promoting it. But go ahead, bro.
Yeah, but that will be the problem, right? Because whenever we address it, right, that at least for parts of Black America, right, there's always pushback. So when Bill Cosby was addressing kids, running wild after school. So growing up in Brooklyn, this is what I saw, man. You would get like kids pretty much, man, I'm talking about in great numbers. And let's say you're going home on New York City Transit. So if you go home on the bus, the guys will get on the bus and be like, for whatever reason, they'll think it's a great idea to jump on and beat up the bus driver. And if they was on the train, they would think it was a great idea to, jump on and beat up one of the conductors, right? My pops was a train conductor for New York City Transit and carried a knife for it, right? And so, at that time, the slang term for that was wilding out, right? So even when you look at like the Central Park Five, right? When they was about, hey, we were going into we was just in Central Park, just wilding out, right? So wilding can mean you're chilling and acting a fool, and wilding out, it also can mean that, you're out there, getting into stuff or things that you shouldn't be doing. And so when Bill Cosby now pressed Black America about this, like, where are the parents? Why? There's no justification for that behavior. And then what do? We push back on Bill Cosby, America's dad, but, oh man, you're just a sellout. You don't know what's real. You don't know the struggle. It's almost in a sense like we want it. Or when civil rights leaders told Gen X when gangster rap was coming out, hey, please don't use that word nigga, right? Please, right? And what did we say? Go F yourself, right? This is what's going on here. It's the streets and everything else. And not knowing how influential mass media is. And so, like Sandor, right? When you fly to a certain part of the world and some Iranian dude is like, yo, what up, my nigga? I couldn't be upset because the first thing out of his mouth was, I listen to Tupac, I listen to Biggie, I know Cool G Rap, I know this, I know, and there was nothing I can say because from his perspective, that's what it was at the end of the day. that's what it was to be black. So many of us, in a sense, have been, willing participants, right, in terms of promoting this culture, or this is what it is to be black, right? So especially, man, when you got to those gang films in the 90s, man, I'll never forget when Boys in the Hood came out, and Ice Cube came out in shorts, and I guess that's the first time people ever seen him in shorts. And I was living in Cali at the time. I was in Riverside. And when he came out, all the girls jumped out of it. Oh, girl, Ice Cube, you see him in shorts? He's so sexy. He this, he that. And when we went to go see Boys in the Hood, right? When we walked out of that film, nobody was walking out talking about how tragic it was. It was, it was a thing of, praising it for how authentic, how authentic it is, right? And for people, remember what I said, how you create your own villains. And so people in the black community who operated opposite towards that, for the most part, they were chastised for the way that they function, right? Within those given environments. So if you were on your way to being the next Barack Obama, and you're growing up in Brooklyn or LA or whatever it is, in the 90s or in the 80s, man, those environments didn't do themselves any favor, any favor with you, because at the end of the day, they wanted nothing to do with you. Right? Nothing to do with it. This is what it is. This is the streets. This is how we are. Even the part, like when I was living in Cali, even to the point where the black kids who lived in the suburbs, who were well off, would mimic what kids were doing, in the city, because that's what it was to quote and unquote, be black, to what you're saying. And so at the end of the day, and that's what I'm saying in terms of this Kakistocracy, where, as you put it so nicely, is that, so much, even from within ourselves, before you get to white people and everything else, it's like I said, any and everything, right, that would make one a functional member of society was chastised. So, like, when I was a teenager, I had some hip hop clothes and stuff like that because, my dad really didn't like it. But for the most part, I'll send you pictures of me, Gigi. I look like my dad I dressed like Zach Morris from Saved by the Bell. Right? Well, when I was in high school, that's how I dressed. I looked like a damn Abercrombie and Fitch model. So my fashion was anywhere between Zach Morris and Carlton Banks, right? Again, that's how I dress, because my father was like, hey, when you go out into the world, you're representing your family, you're representing yourself, and how you maintain your body and how you dress does shape what people think about you, right? And so there are elements of Black America that will kind of take that to the extreme, especially when we're talking about racism or whatever, and say how you look to the world doesn't matter, but that isn't true. Like I said, that isn't true at all. Again, like, when I told you guys the story, about me, and the cops, and that day I was wearing a damn houndstooth blazer with a satchel book bag and some khakis from the Gap, right? And the cops came up to me and said, hey, yeah, you. I said, yes, officer. He said, yeah, we know you're a fucking nerd, right? And that's what came out of his mouth. He said, we see how you dress. We see you hanging out with the Air Force recruiter, the Marine Corps recruiter, and your high school coaches. You want a future, but that guy you're walking with doesn't, right? And here's our advice. If I were you, I would stop hanging out with that guy because he's on our shit list, right? And if you don't want to be on our shit list, you know what to do, right? And then at that point, like I said, I cut all ties with everything. I was done with school by 12, and the next time me and those two cops saw each other, I was by myself. And you know what that dude did? He tipped his hat at me and said, you're a smart guy. right? And that was, again, that was the end of it. Whereas I would have had friends who would have been like, yo, that pig can't tell me what to do. We got to keep it a bean. We got to keep it, we got to keep it a buck. And then I would have ended up like, I got one of my homeboys, I got one of my homeboys who made an opposite decision, ended up getting locked up, right? He got locked up for 23 years. Just got out 2 years ago. One of my childhood friends. And he was like, yo. and he was like, and all the same people, right, that was hyping me up or whatever, or whatever on the street when I was in this stuff, they were the first dudes to snitch on me. Right. And he was heartbroken because that's how he ended up with all those years, because the crew he was with or whoever they interviewed said, hey, there's the guy, that's him, that's who you want, right? And voila, 23 years later, my homeboy's getting out. And while his mom's was alive, God bless her soul, she was like, yo, it's what more can I tell you than I told you so? Right. So in our community and in our society, even in our society as a whole. So when you look at like what a lot of people now call your rainbow movement and everything else, man, like I was looking at it on YouTube, it just looked like Freaknik. And I'm like, well, what does that have to do? What does that have to do with progress and freedom? How does that make us better? When I just saw one person dressed in leather walk another person dressed in leather on a leash, right? How is that civil rights when you have people who are homeless, when you have 6% of American children who don't have food to eat? You have crumbling infrastructure, you name it, man. How is it that we have things like this that are at the forefront, of what America is going to be and what rights, and what rights are. And again, just back to the same thing in the intro, right? For me, I thought that, okay, by 2023 going into 2024, I thought that I would have taken my family on vacation to the moon. I thought I was going to have a flying car, right? I thought I was going to have a flying car and everything else. But for some strange reason, right, it appears that American politics have been on a loop, stuck between World War I and the Civil Rights Movement. So,
but let me pump the brakes for you for a minute, man. I put the picture here only to underscore. This is how I used to dress when I was 16, 17, and 18. And I mean, the Cole Haan shoes, the chino pants, the belt, had to have a belt. You couldn't, with the school I went to, you had to have a belt. And your shirt had to be buttoned up. You know what I mean? It had to be, okay? And on certain days we had to wear ties, okay? That's why I put the picture there. But I mean, ultimately, one could argue that, America's going as planned. That it's, governed by people who aren't really actually doing, what's to the benefit of the masses, but they're doing what's to the benefit of, the plutocracy. So one could argue it's not really actually a Kakistocracy as much as it is a plutocracy or a dollarocracy. I mean, like I'm just saying, like today, like I don't know how you guys dress, but like say for example, if I'm business casual, I'm wearing 513 Levi's with a slim fit shirt, you know what I'm saying, and probably some Cole Haan trucker boots or something like that. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm wearing, man. I might put a tie on, I might put a blazer on with it, I might not. I can roll up my sleeves if I want to. I can do whatever I want to with it, okay? But that's typically how I'm going to dress. Not baggy pants, like that's out of style, man. It just doesn't look neat. You understand what I'm saying? So, Now, you know, as a kid though, you know, I was counterculture to a certain extent, I guess. You know, like around about 22, 23, 24, 25, I did some things that I shouldn't have done, you know, but you know, when I link it back to the music and I link it back to popular culture and I link it to hip hop culture, you know, this is one of the things that I've wondered. Why is this facet of Black life the one that's promoted and made the paramount exemplar of what Black life is about for the past, you know, I mean, what, 30 years, 30, 40, well, I can't say 40 years, but it's getting close to 40 years. Why this form? Because, I mean, you know, hip hop was like 83, 84, 85, on up to now, okay? And, you know, why are young kids from the inner city like perceived as the exemplar of what Black culture is all about? And not to say that, you know, they shouldn't have a voice and their concerns shouldn't be addressed, but why is it that they're the paramount voice of the community? And I think about it and I juxtapose it with white culture and like white musicians. One of the things about white musicians is, man, they get to rock out, man, until they are fucking 60, 70 years old, bro. Real talk. Not to say that, you know, they're the most popular, and not to say that there's never a new cadre of young white artists, you know, rising in the ranks or whatever, but like the Rolling Stones, man, they were able to play till they damn near were dead. I mean, who else? Like, I mean, you know, they don't have a life, you know, a life range or a lifespan when it comes to them being able to perform their art. They don't have a life cycle of death. Like when they reach 35 or something, they have to retire from their art form. But we do. And country music is the same, man. I mean, you know, like you got to think about it. Those artists, man, country artists, man, they perform until they're fucking old and gray.
Mm.
Why is there a life cycle on our art? And then particularly, why is there a life cycle on the older progenitors of hip hop, like the people like Kid and Play? Why was there an end to them being able to perform their art? Or EPMD, or, you know, Stetsasonic, or whatever the case may be, whatever. Why was there a life cycle on their art, whereas the youth culture is what permeates our art forms? Why? It's just a question, you know what I'm saying? But I mean, you know, it is what it is, bro.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but that would be the answer, right? Again, it would be, that's the thing. It would be the youth culture, right? Because for us, it's about trending or what's new at the time, right? So within Black culture, right, you'll have somebody going, "Oh, that's old," or "that, what was our word back then? Played out." Right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's old. That's played out. So again, you know, you would, everything you said, those would be trends or something like that at the time. And then once that trend ran its course, that would be it. So very few people could do that. So like what you're looking at, like LL Cool J, right? So LL Cool J pretty much survived not survived, but thrived in every era of hip hop there was. Right.
Yeah, I mean, he survived, but I mean, what he did was he moved on to TV, movies and television. Right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, but yeah, he did move on to movie. Yeah, he did, and then not even that too. Also, too, the subject matter, right? You know, the way the subject matter. So again, everybody is talking about fun, sex, drugs, rock and roll, right? But the way it's also presented too, right? It doesn't move the same when you have gray hairs and you're 55, right? So you know, no, nobody's gonna believe that, you know, again, a 55-year-old dude, you know, is on the block or hanging out in Project always. And to your very point, right? You would have, and that's what I'm saying. Even into where people will take that same youth culture and apply it, like you said, and apply it to older Black people. So even when I was here, like I met some kids, and they wanted to speak slang, and I was like, look, man, you are 30 something years too late, right? I am I am an adult. I have seen some stuff, right? I lived life, and that when I spoke or did those things in that manner, man, that was like, at this point, just about 30 something years ago.
So
right?
let me show you some shit though. Like, okay, so here's the. Let me share the screen. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
So these are white rock bands or whatever the case may be, right? Which of the longest rock and roll acts, still have dates on the calendar? Like Red Hot Chili Peppers, they still doing their thing, okay? They're still performing, okay? We all know who they are. Metallica, we all know who they are. TRL, they used to be on TRL back in, 87? Not 87, but 89, 90, 91, 92, they were all on TRL, okay? I don't even know who New Order is. Depeche Mode, okay, I know who Depeche Mode are, okay? Like a European, punk band. I don't know who the Madness are. I know who U2 is, okay? They're still touring. The Cure, still touring. Def Leppard, still touring. Iron Maiden, still out there. Blondie, Kiss, Devo, still out there. You know what I mean? And not to say that there aren't any, Black hip hop acts that are still not out there doing their thing, but they're not as popular, man. And they're not stigmatized for being out there. You got Black artists, man, who, young artists who will deride and denigrate the older artists and say that, they're washed up. You're a has-been. How many young white people come out and call their own older artists has-beens and washed up?
There you go.
I mean, especially in country music. I dare a young white country artist to say something bad about, say, for example, a Dolly Parton, Kenny Rogers, a George Strait. I dare a young white boy to say something like that. It ain't gonna happen. But back to the theme, though, man. America is a Kakistocracy.
Yeah, because again, right? So even in this was one of my debates when I first came to the space, right? When we were because me, you, and Nameless did the Black History documentary, in response to that, right? Because again, you have segments, which probably now is maybe the more popular of it, of Black intelligentsia that teaches you Black history from a position of defeat, man. That you were always woe is me, down in the dirt. Nothing has changed. The needle has never moved, right? And you, in a sense, you still are, you still are where you are. And if you wanted to learn any Black history with hope in it, you better know some Hotep dudes on the corner, right? Because what you would get from a lot of Black people at a time who especially were in the mainstream, that our history was a history of despair, when actually, man, it's damn near highly inspirational, man. If you took Black history in its complete, in its complete context, again, these are people worthy of emulating. And as a matter of fact, historically speaking, they were emulated, because other groups will come into the United States and emulate said group, right? Before in a sense, I'm pretty certain that maybe they'll probably start with Birth of a Nation, right? They were always trying to put things out there saying that we were degenerate. But again, many groups of people learned the ropes of the United States of America, because when they will first come to the United States of America, being dumped in with the Black people is where they started until they were promoted up or bought up, you know what I'm saying, in some shape, like I said, in some shape, form, and fashion. So even the way a lot of our kids are taught their history. So like I was watching something like even the other day, man, like you had I was watching those two guys, I guess the ones that got kicked out of the city hall meeting in Tennessee, and and one guy, like he was shouting and everything else, like he was preaching and all this stuff and everything else. And again, I know where he got that from, because at the end of the day, that was the model. That was the model in which he was taught Black history, right? So not all civil rights leaders were preachers, right? Some guys were politicians, some guys were businessmen, some people came from the hard skill sides of academia, so on and so forth. So even the way, and that's what I'm trying to say, so even the way, when I talk about a Kakistocracy, is that even the way that some of our people, or some of our most prominent people, teach younger generations, their own, their own history, is again is pretty much one of defeat, and that you're constantly living 1965. You're constantly living 1965 in a loop. And again, from what I see from domestic American politics, right, sad and most unfortunately, like you said, it may be done that way because for a lot of people, that's their bread and butter.
Yeah, I mean, for damn sure, white people, man, are making a bunch of money off Black misfortune. I can see that right now. That's why I did the video. And then, guys were like, well, you're trying to endorse, thug culture. I'm like, not really, man. I'm just pointing out, you got a group of people who set this shit in motion. And then they get to sit back and watch it all unfold and make money on it and enjoy it. I mean, how sick and macabre can it be to create this kind of dysfunction and to sit back and enjoy it and to eat your popcorn and to say, hey, look what we've done. Look at this shit. Isn't this great? This is awesome. And they do it from the comfort of the suburbs. But I don't know, bro. It is what it is, man. I'm not here to.
Yeah, because like even then, right? When you look at when you look at the plantation, right? So okay, you take the guys, again, your planter class, they get reparations after slavery, right? Many of these guys may go on to become industrialists or whatever they become, right? And you go from a slave plantation to sharecropping, right? And then, taking white people themselves and locking them in the factories and making them work 18 to 17 hours a day, or having children work in factories making $1.50 a month or a week, whatever it was, whatever it was you were paying them, until the children themselves started dying, either in coal mines or in machines, man. Because I'm studying that part of the Industrial Revolution now, and I'm looking at pictures of American children going to work. Man, a lot of them dudes in the face, GG, look just as old as me and you.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I'm saying? And my man is 10 years old going to work. You know what I'm saying? 10 years old going to work, making it happen. Because what was this? This was this was before it was these hut-like homes. It was a 2-family hut that they built. I forgot it was called. This was before they decided to do the suburbs. It's on the tip of my tongue. So, they built like these kind of like hut-like homes. And so again, you see these kids leaving these communities, right? Looking like Sand Dog in Iraq, circa 2000 and, circa 2004, 2005, you know what I'm saying? And, so you have that. So on top of all of that, right, you have this kind of class warfare of who's white and who isn't. And then on top of that, you got these people, despite the fact that they're living in miserable conditions, right? They're satisfied off the thought of, at least I'm not a nigga, right? And so again, you got people who allegedly wanted to escape Europe to get away from this kind of thing, right? But for the 1% or for the small few, right, who are now making money or generating wealth, generating wealth or whatever you want to call it, right? They're going to take not only their other fellow Europeans, right, but they're going to take all these other people of different shades and everything else, right? Turn all these people all against each other just so that they can replicate what they wanted to get away from in Europe, right? So it wasn't one of the things from the founding fathers, hey man, we can't let the banks get us. We can't let the banks get us. And voila, right? Not only does a bank have you, but it's a private, like I said, it's a private bank at that. And shout out to Thomas Jefferson, as I just mentioned, saying that, the future belongs to the living and not the dead. And so, look,
the only thing I wanted to pull out, and just so people know, first of all, let me give a shout out to Giagami. Thank you, sir. Appreciate the donation. Appreciate it. And by the way, man, look, don't say whatever kind of content creator in the Black manosphere you are, or whatever type of, I don't know, spectator or participant passively you are by like just viewing the content and not creating it. Don't say that there aren't Black men in the manosphere who are talking about issues besides that of bitches and hoes, man. Don't say it. But the funny thing is, when niggas talk about shit other than bitches and hoes, you niggas don't appear for the motherfucking conversation. It is what it is. Don't say that there isn't a conversation going on in this space that exists outside of the domain of complaining about bitches and hoes. Because when niggas ain't talking about bitches and hoes, you niggas ain't watching. You ain't there for the motherfucking goddamn entertainment. Real talk. And that's for people not watching right now, but for people who might watch when they roll through this again. And it is what it is, though. Like I'm not here to, condemn guys. I mean, you can do whatever you want to do, okay? But don't say in the same breath that you're tired of niggas talking about bitches if you're not here having conversations with guys that aren't talking about bitches. Don't do it. Don't come to me with that bullshit, because I'm gonna go off on you and tell you you's a fuck nigga. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm keeping it a buck, man. Don't come to me with that bullshit. Don't come to me with that fuck shit. Because one of the things I do, I constantly have conversations about ideas, policies, shit like that, okay? I'm not always talking about shit that's emerging in popular culture. This is not a fucking gossip channel, man. Some niggas, that's what they do. They run gossip channels and shit. And I don't have a problem talking about events, but it has to fit into, something that I'm doing philosophically or idealistically or ideologically. I can't be moved back and forward with whatever the fuck is going on contemporarily in popular culture. Then I'll be all over the place. But, at the end of the day, all I'm saying is don't say that the only conversations that are being had in this space pertain to bitches. Don't do it. All I'm gonna say is you not here for anything but niggas talking about bitches. That's it. I'm just keeping it a buck, man. I'm calling this shit exactly how I see it. And look, just to respond to Kaylon, I get what you're saying, right? But here's the funny thing, right? This culture is the music industry is a corporate-based industry, okay? And that's not how music has been consumed and passed down traditionally from generation to generation throughout time. This is a brand new corporate-based, market-based way of consuming and creating art. Okay? Because I can guarantee you, like, this is not, the way we consume music now is not how it has been done traditionally throughout the annals of time. It just hasn't been. This is some newfangled shit we're witnessing. And my guess is that it is predicated upon, you know, the exploitation of youth culture. That's the way I perceive this shit, man. It's, to be quite frank about it, it's pedophilic. It is. It's pedophilic. I mean, you think about it. It's pedo, man. To be quite honest about it. But go ahead, Sandog. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, like I said, so even in our society, if things like the national debt, so like, you know, just like I was about to say, so again, you know, you have kids in your 20s and, you know, my daughter, what they're saying, like, you know, American children being born or, you know, automatically born, it's, you know, they're automatically born into debt because they owe some private bank, you know, X amount of money for for wars and for wars and God knows whatever else that they never signed up for or know anything about, right? I think, you know, I was watching a video with one of my friends and it was talking about inflation, right? And basically how, you know, if you turn back the hands of time 50 years ago, $40,000 back then would do what $120,000 could do now. So if you made 40 grand at some point, you know, so many decades ago, you know, that was just as good as being, you know, in, you know, almost mid six figures now. And so again, and then you got people, you know, telling young people, telling African Americans or whatever, all for these various reasons, you know, you need to work hard, you need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. But when you went to college, right, there was no such thing as a student loan and Pell Grant, right? You went for free, right?
Yeah, and that's a big difference. Yeah, all this Pell Grant, student loan shit, that's the commodification of the educational market, man. You know what I'm saying? Now, and look, there was a commission. I forget which commission this is. The Trilateral Commission, if I'm not mistaken. They came out with some report. But this report basically says, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to increase the cost of college. And not only are we going to do that, we're going to dumb it down. Okay? And we're going to make it less affordable. And we're going to make it less, challenging, I guess, in a sense. And now, you know, look at what the outcome is. It is what it is, man. It's some fuck shit. What these kids are learning today in these schools, man, it's tragic to me. But, you know, it is what it is, bro. And look, let me just say this, right? I don't know. In my generation, and just going back to this music thing again, I'm going to drop the music thing. But in our generation, what we did was we dug into crates to sample old artists. The music that we had was retro, just based upon, like, you know, how it was made. There was already endemic or, you know, innate to our music was an appreciation of older artists. What are these new guys doing, man? Like, I don't know what the fuck they're doing. They're just, you know, there it is, the crisis of democracy. That's it. Marvin Sewell, you are exactly right, bro. Thank you for bringing that up. But that is exactly it. The crisis of democracy, papers by the Trilateral Commission. That's exactly it. But go ahead, Sandog. Go ahead.
Yeah. You know, so you know, hold on. I'm trying to get my train of thought. But yeah, man, so, you know, you have these problems. You're kicking the can down the road. You know, that's what I'm saying. And the sad part is, you know, you are exasperating the problem, right? So things like global warming, okay, you're going to deny it, you know. So in the future, like, you know, when my daughter grows up, man, you're going to have clouds that are just going to pour water, right? It's not even going to rain, right? The cloud will just roll over and just pour water on top of your house, right? And pretty much probably crush your roof and damn near drown you, right? And all of this by people ultimately, for the most part, who were living for themselves, thinking, thinking in the short term, for themselves, and sadly and most unfortunately saying, well, you know what, I'm certain somebody else smarter than me could come and fix it, could come and fix it down the road. Right? So if you woke up tomorrow and said, and there was a President Sandog, for example, and not President Sandog, let's say I'm running for president, because that will be my platform, right? So critical, okay, we need better ties with Africa. Shout out to that. That's a discussion unto itself, right? But you need better ties with Africa. But okay, while we have these better ties with Africa, one of the things that we have to do now, although it's not our fault per se, right? But my platform will be, we have to do something about the national debt, right? And at some point, it's going to have to suck for somebody in order, in order for Americans in the future to have a brighter future, right? And so, if each generation, whether the argument is reparations or the national debt, is saying, F that, not me, and looking at their babies and saying, tag your it, then ultimately, what kind of people are we?
Yeah. So, in what other ways are you trying to argue that or make the case that America is a Kakistocracy? You talked about black culture. You talked somewhat about white culture. But let's get to specifics other than just talking about black people, though. Like, what other ways do you perceive America being a Kakistocracy?
Again, but just like I told you, right? Even right now with civil rights, right? Again, and that's what I'm trying to say in terms of what civil rights has been reduced to. So, and when I talk about civil rights, again, right, I'm talking about the civil rights in regards to fixing the material condition of Americans of all colors, right? So again, you got bridges falling out from the ground, right? You have people in Mississippi or in the southern parts of the states, right, who are just living in abject poverty, right? Your inner cities are rotting, like New York City is rotting from the inside out, and you're telling me, and you're telling me the biggest thing that we have on our agenda that we need to fix is about drag queens in school books, right? Because again, for Sandog, the way that I think or the way that I operate, I view all of that stuff as a distraction, right? I believe that a lot of these things are made to distract the American people from certain issues, right? So even when you look at the war in the Ukraine, right? You have politicians who may have certain relationships or certain ties, with people abroad, and you're telling your own people that you don't have money for them, right? Post COVID, job, no job, unemployment, etc. You're telling your own people that you have no money for them, but magically billions of dollars appears for a group of people who live on the other side of the world, and your nation is engaged in a conflict that you didn't even know was happening, let alone vote for.
Right. So I'm gonna play devil's advocate with you then.
Yeah.
So there's a statesman, in the U.S. His name is Alexander Hamilton, one of the founding fathers.
Yeah,
of the U.S.
yeah. I
Of
have my
course.
issue. Go ahead. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
then,
I know.
the nation's first Secretary of the Treasury. And, he basically says, look, uh, if managed properly, the national debt could actually turn out to be a national blessing. Because, I mean, ultimately, uh, he thought that, if wealthy people invest in government bonds, they would have a personal interest in ensuring that the government of the U.S. is successful. Okay? And one could argue it eventually was implemented and set the stage for the U.S. to establish its credit on a firm basis. Now, the question is whether or not it's gotten out of hand. Okay, so what do you think about that, though? I mean, do you think there's any legitimacy to him saying that, or how do you perceive it?
Again, right? No, I like I said, I agree with it completely because again, at, all of this is reliant upon that the people remain some degree competent and moral, right? So when you do stuff like when you get stuff where the ceiling comes to the point where you give any one political parties that could hold the nation hostage or the credibility of America hostage in front of its investors, right? Saying that if you don't give me this or if you don't give me that, right? And so now this thing about the debt ceiling or the national debt is something that's been weaponized in our own internal politics. So if I'm some wealthy person who's invested in America, Japan or China, for example. So if I'm whatever it is from Japan, China, or just a wealthy American businessman, right? That doesn't look good to me. That doesn't give me the confidence that America will be able to pay me back the money that I invested in it. Right. So, so to include the fact that you have other examples like the 2008 crisis, and then again what recently happened, with other trade scandals and stuff like that during COVID, where you have people who are cheating the system and getting caught with their hands in a cookie jar. So sad and most unfortunately, right, when people tinker around and mess with the American economy, then people around the world also have to pay for it as well. So for me personally, again, I believe that again, to his point, that it's good to have wealthy people invest, but the debt has to be managed, and then if you're in a surplus, even better.
Yeah. So, what other ways do you think the U.S. is a kakistocracy? So basically, it doesn't solve its problems. It just kicks the can down the road. So that's one of the
Correct.
things. Yeah.
Yes, correct. You know what I'm saying? It just it's like I said, it simply kicks its can down the road, and ultimately, what I'm saying is, white, black, or otherwise, it doesn't. At least from somebody who's looking at it from the outside, it doesn't look like there's any real desire. It doesn't look like there's any real desire to change, right? That people are really comfortable with the way that things are, right? You know what I'm saying?
Would that be a problem with the governing elites, or would that be a problem with the citizenry itself? Or
uh,
would you go
I
ahead?
look at it with the citizenry itself, right? Because again, right, the quintessential to freedom is vigilance, right? So if I'm gonna vote for Gigi and then walk away and sit on my hands, with the idea, what I'm saying, with the idea that I'm just with the idea that okay, I voted for Gigi and he's gonna magically fix all my problems on my behalf, right? And I don't have town hall meetings. I don't interact with him. I'm not engaged in what he's negotiating up on Capitol Hill or in the state capitol or anything like that, right? So this is again. So this is what I'm trying. So this is what I'm trying to say. So here's the thing. It's a capistocracy by violence. It's a capistocracy by omission and commission. You know what I'm saying? Simultaneously. And so, again, especially in our community, right? Historically speaking, a lot of people will come out, right, and vote for president, and you won't see him again for again for another 4 years. Because remember, part of a kakistocracy also is when you're incompetent, not just simply having bad character. So corruption exists, right? So what do they say? I remember I read an article saying a kleptocracy and a kakistocracy go hand in hand, right? So again, these things go hand in hand. So if you look at, let's say, for example, a state like Nigeria, okay, a lot of Nigerians are going to go out and vote, and they're going to vote thinking that the president is a king and that he can fix all the problems, but not really understanding that the most important people to deal with are the people in your Senate. So if your president has ideas about fixing the country, then you need to put people in Senate seats that are aligned with that same vision, right? That are aligned with that same vision, and then also the fortitude to work with that administration and see it through. So put it this way: I remember in Nigeria when Goodluck Jonathan left office, and Buhari came, and he was doing things to try to fix corruption. And again, at that adjustment in the economy was hard, right? Because the man is trying to limit corruption. And you know what the Nigerians were saying in the streets? Bring back corruption.
Damn.
Right? You have people saying, again, bring back corruption, right? Because the process of the nation retrieving the money that was stolen from it, right? Retrieving the money that was stolen from it, putting policies in place to prevent these things and everything else. Again, people felt the squeeze of that, right? The same way if you had a President Sandog who came in and was like, yo, man, this debt is out of control and we need to reel it in. So there will be a generation or so, or a couple of generations of Americans where life would suck, right? But it's either this or your children don't have a country. What is it that you want? Right? What is it that you want? And so this is the thing. So even when you talk about families, right? Or even in family units, how you have certain families, right, that sacrifice their children on the altars of dysfunction. Right? So you talk about, so in the space, right, you have the conversations where, women will have their sons, dad was thugnificent 2.0, right? But then, I'm raising my son to be this precious lamb, that's gonna go out and save the world. And I fill him up and load him up with information that's not even the truth. And then, when I send him out there and the world blasts him into, all I could do is look at him in the face and be like, son, the world is tough and Jesus will fix it.
Right. So look, if I don't know, man, the bot, man, is a little doing some extra crazy stuff, man. If it is, I apologize for it. But shout out to Marvin Soul. Appreciate him for the donation, man. Appreciate that, bro. Straight up. I don't know, man. All I can say is, man, America, man, has had the ability to clean up a lot of shit from the beginning. They just didn't do it. Now, I'm not gonna go into my spiel on, especially, how they could have handled race. They could have handled race a long time ago. Actually, the opportunity for America to handle race was during Reconstruction. That was the time they could have actually handled it. Okay, and made everything. They wouldn't have to be worrying about reparations, or they wouldn't have these inner cities. You wouldn't have this dysfunction. Like these broken families. You wouldn't have the proliferation of. You wouldn't have had a need, to be quite frank, for the 1964 Civil Rights Bill. It would have been unnecessary.
And guess what else you would still have?
What's
universal, a countrywide, a universal value system.
Yeah. And not only that, if you don't have a 64 civil rights bill, you don't have sex added to it.
Correct. Hence why
which is not to say that, you know, like there was never a need for women to have some of the issues that they needed to be addressed to get addressed, but it never would have been set up in such a way that white women were basically able to interlope on a movement and take all of the boons that were associated with it and just basically hoard it for themselves. It wouldn't have happened. Okay? So, and this is one of the reasons why at some point, and shout out to Kaylon, at some point I am going to do a video, like, because there are guys right now who are making big fucking bucks, man, on the internet bitching about woke politics. They're making money. I mean, right now there's a guy, he's doing a stream right the fuck now, bro. I swear to God. Let me find this guy, man. He's doing a stream right this second, bro. And he's got, I guarantee you this motherfucker has 14,000 people watching this stream. Hold on, let me see. Yeah, that motherfucker's got 11,000 motherfuckers watching this shit right now. 11,000 motherfuckers watching this shit right now, bro. Let me show you this shit, man. I ain't gonna, you know, I'm not gonna present, share the screen. That's the dude right there. You ever heard of him? Nerdrotic?
Yeah, Nerdrotic, yes.
They're making money hand over fist over bitching and complaining about woke culture. That's how they get paid, man. There's 11,000 people watching that stream, bro. And all he does is talk about the various ways that identity politics has made it inconvenient for people who enjoy, like, regular comic books and fantasy and shit like that. Fantasy, fantasy movies and fantasy television.
Eric July, the black guy there, man, started his own comic called Ipsum, right? So, you know, he started a GoFundMe, right? He started a GoFundMe to fund his comic book. So he was thinking that, okay, I'll raise like, $20,000, $10,000, whatever. My man ended up raising over $1 million in less than a week.
Now, look, I'm not saying that there's, they don't have legitimate complaints to some degree, but my viewpoint on this shit is, you motherfuckers are the ones
who created
that created the fucking conditions that gave rise to woke culture to begin with. You're the motherfuckers who did it. If you created the conditions are such that you created them and wokeness emerged out of it, why are you complaining about woke culture? Why? I'm gonna do that shit next week. Okay? Because it pisses me off. I'm gonna tell you why it pisses me off. Because what they're doing is they're complaining about some shit that has an impact on their entertainment. I mean, do you get what I'm saying? They're having complaints and they're irritated about the ways in which woke politics has encroached upon the art that they consume. But niggas got a beef with how this encroaches on it permeates every area and facet of their fucking lives. And they get to sit back and bitch and complain when it's their very demographic who ushered in this shit. They're the ones who did it. Step by step. All you have to do is look, you can trace sequentially the various ways in which they've allowed this monster to basically grow. Like a blob. You remember that shit?
Yeah.
The movie The Blob. So it's like a big fucking gelatinous, I don't know, like some sort of fucking force of nature, like in the Lovecraftian tradition, like this humongous blob, and it consumes everything that it comes, especially if it's organic. It consumes it, everything in its path. And I just wonder, like, how can you bitch about this? How the fuck can you complain about it? I can't comprehend why they feel it's as if it's acceptable to complain about the shit. I just don't fucking get it. But I mean, they're making a shit ton of money off complaining about some woke shit.
Yeah, because again, and that's another thing that makes America a kakistocracy, because we do it to each other. So again, right, shout out to the fact right now, as we speak, there are dudes that are still locked up for selling marijuana, and there are people who are outside who are practically billionaires because of it. Right? This is what I'm trying to say. So, like, if you're operating under neoliberal politics, and this is what I'm trying to say, again, even when we talk about drugs, right? What makes drugs wrong? Think about it. I am going to, right? So what was this? Reagan, or after the Clinton, the Bush Jr. administration, right? I am going to remove all the regulations, put place on the market, and says the market knows what it wants. The market, the market is self-correcting. It's more efficient than government, yada, yada, yada. So if the market knows what it wants, why is it illegal for me to put this rock up your nose?
Yeah.
There's a market for it. So in America, if there's a market for it, why can't it be legal? Right? Look, you have commodified human, like you commodified human life, like down to the point where you have children going hungry in your country. Right? Everything is a business, down to access to food. Again, right now, there's some gorilla in the Congo. How much he pay for bottled water?
Yeah, I don't know about that one though. That's something I don't have the answer to.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? When a squirrel wants some cashews and anything like that, right? Does it cost him $1.50 a pound?
Right.
So when you're talking about the commodification of things, and that everything is a business, everything is a business, right? Or a way to generate profit. Because again, I would look at entrepreneurship, from at least from a, if you wanted to say from a moral perspective, that you're looking at humanity, or you're looking at the market, and you're solving a problem. So I get it, right? America's a wealthy country, so you can do things that are based upon what people want. But to your very point, right? The very fact that you can create problems in society, and then people could have something as simple as a podcast making money or millions of dollars off of it is fucking, like I said again, is horrendous. So hey, you guys ran alcohol, and from alcohol came NASCAR, liquor stores, and Dukes of Hazzard's TV shows, right? You know what I'm saying? And a lot of dudes got to flip that money and go legit.
So
right?
Look, so I think some people are gonna, say that drugs are the thing that destroyed the black community, right? There's a lot of people who are going to make that argument. I don't make that argument, okay? In fact, I'll argue the exact opposite. I think that the war on drugs is what destroyed the black community, not the drugs themselves, okay?
Correct.
That's just my opinion, okay? Not to say that, the use of illicit substances are, you know, like it's the best thing for you to do. I don't think that, you know, anybody who overuses any kind of substance, I don't care if it's food, I don't care if it's water. If you drink too much water, it'll hurt you, okay? If you eat too much food, it'll become pathogenic, okay? Same thing with illicit, you know, substances, you know, substances that create, you know, psychotropic effects. Like if you do too much of it and you get addicted to it, it will fuck you up, okay? Sugar will fuck you up. Caffeine will fuck you up. Tobacco will fuck you up, okay? But ultimately, you got to think, man. Prior to the prohibition of alcohol and the prohibition of all these other illicit drugs, what was the conversation in the country about the impact or the effects of any of this shit? I'd like somebody to give me some fucking indication. Somebody give me some insight as to newspaper articles, publications about how illicit drugs were destroying the moral fabric of the United States. I want somebody to tell me, because look, Maggle, you got to understand, cocaine used to be in Coca-Cola. It's the active ingredient in the most popular selling drink in the world. It was an active ingredient. No politician was talking about the various ways in which Coca-Cola was destroying the fucking moral fabric of the country. Nobody was saying this shit prior to Prohibition. People used to buy, like, people talk about like syrup and sipping on syrup and shit. It was the active ingredient in all of the tinctures and, you know, the cough syrups that, you know, the salesmen used to push the carts around. That shit used to be the active ingredient in most of like their concoctions and shit. Nobody was saying that this shit was destroying the fabric of U.S. society, man. Not until Prohibition. So then the question becomes, why all of a sudden did these substances, quote unquote, create such a moral fucking fabric? I mean, you know, like a moral catastrophe. Why? And the other thing, bro, let me just say this, bro. I think what actually destroyed families was a constellation of things. Crack by itself, man, black people, man, in the 50s and the 60s, they had heroin, bro. Now you tell me which drug is more, you know, like harmful and corruptive. Crack cocaine or fucking heroin, dog? Which one? Heroin or fucking crack? Now, I'm not saying that, you know, crack didn't have a destructive impact or whatever the case may be, but I think more so than the drug itself was the war on it. Crack wouldn't even cost it as much money if it wouldn't even cost the same amount of money if the shit was legal. Cocaine is 3 times the price of gold. Or was anyway. 3 times the price of gold. The only reason that it became that expensive was because it's a black market. It was driven to the black market. Without it being driven to the black market, the shit is relatively cheap. Doesn't cost shit. It's like it doesn't cost anything. It's as cheap as buying a fucking beer. But now, I mean, you got guys killing each other over the territory. The same way with alcohol, man. Alcohol, basically, the prohibition of alcohol helped the mafia to expand. And the illicit activity associated with it to expand. Okay? So you got something called the Volstead Act. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It provided for the enforcement of the 18th Amendment, which is prohibition, and it led to a lucrative black market for alcohol. So you got organized crime groups all over America, including the mafia, who took advantage of it by smuggling and distributing illegal alcohol. And the fact is, when you make something illegal that there's a demand for, there's no shortage of it, to be quite frank. As much as there is a black market that develops in order to furnish and sell it and distribute it. That's the only thing that happens. There was no shortage of alcohol because of prohibition. All you did was you got an enhancement of organized crime is the only thing you got out of that shit. And a whole bunch of death and killing amongst white motherfuckers. Because they're the ones who are primarily, you know, the demographic who cornered the alcohol market. I mean, it's just, these are facts of American history. It's a fact.
Yeah.
I'm just saying what the facts are. And look, people talk about crack babies all the time and shit like this. Where's the evidence of crack babies, bro? Like scientifically and medically, what is the evidence that demonstrates that there actually is such a phenomenon as a crack baby? Because I mean, if you're gonna make a claim about a fact about the world, dog, I'm not saying it because I sold it or none of that shit, bro. I'm just talking about facts. This has nothing to do with whether I sold it or not. There is no such thing as a crack baby, bro. It just doesn't exist. I'm just saying, like, with all of these problems and the so-called medical condition, there is no medical term for it. So we got to be careful, bro. Like, I mean, like, I like to use facts when I make arguments, bro. I don't like to use moral intuitions, none of that shit. I like to go step by step. If I'm going to make a claim about the world, I'm going to have empirical evidence to substantiate the claim that I'm making about the world. And one of the claims I'm making about the world is, and anybody can come up if you disagree. Anybody that has a disagreement can come up and debate me about this issue. All I'm trying to articulate is that cocaine has existed in the world prior to its prohibition, and everything was not fucking falling apart at the seams on account of it. There wasn't even a discussion surrounding it until a bunch of white bitches, because white women are the ones who are primarily responsible for the prohibition of alcohol. That's a fact. The temperance movement was sparked by white women who wanted to clean up their husbands. They wanted to get their husbands to leave the taverns and to stop fucking hoes and to come back home. Those are the facts. The whole prohibition movement was started by white bitches. Go look it up. Look this shit up, man, if you think I'm lying to you, bro.
Lips that touch alcohol will never touch mine. Some of the slogans, yeah.
and this is a perfect example of a Kakistocracy, if you ask me. You got a group of people, they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And here you have a group of women who feel like, okay, they're doing the right thing. But they weren't able to foresee down the road they're creating a situation in which something that there's a demand for when you prohibit it is going to lead to an enhancement of black market activity related to it. It just is what it is. It is what it is. Mago, man, bro, let me just say this shit, bro. Like, I like to deal with reality, bro. I don't like to deal with movies and television and shit like that. Like New Jack City is a movie, bro. And I'm not saying that there haven't been like any dope fiends and people down on their luck. There's been bums and hobos since time immemorial, dog. All I'm trying to articulate is this, bro. Crack costs money, more money than it would have cost if the shit was legal to begin with. Like if Coca-Cola it still had cocaine as the active ingredient, then motherfuckers wouldn't have had to go buy crack no fucking way.
Facts.
What I'm saying is, this is what I'm saying. And if anybody can come up and debate me related to the issue. Look up what the pharmacological equivalent of crack is and cocaine is. They're not that much different than each other. Like pharmacologically, there's very little difference between crack cocaine and cocaine itself, bro. It just is what it is. Now, I've never used crack or cocaine. I don't know what the fuck what impact psychotropically that shit has. But I do know a whole bunch of people who have used the shit, and there are varying levels or degrees of addiction in different types of people. That's all I can tell you. And I've seen this with my own eyes. I've seen white boys who've done cocaine, both powdered and crack. I've seen black people who've done cocaine, both powdered and crack cocaine, and go on and live functional lives just like anybody else. I've seen it with my own two eyes. So it's one thing to say, okay, well, you know, crack destroyed our communities. Bro, I don't believe crack destroyed our communities, bro. I don't believe it, bro. So crack created single mothers and shit. Crack created ghettos. That's what happened? I ain't saying it helped, but are we saying that crack cocaine, an illicit substance by itself, created the social conditions in which all of this shit evolved? That one thing. So if it weren't for that, we'd be married right now. Black women will already be at the table right now. No, there would have been no dysfunction, no crime, no nothing in the black community if all this shit would have been like not present. My thing is, if the shit, at the end of the day, if the shit would have never been made illegal in the first place, there would never have been a black market surrounding the sale and the distribution of it. Never. Niggas would have been drinking Coca-Cola and going to work with cocaine and would have been going to work. Bottom line. That's what I'm saying. So at the end of the day, this whole idea that, you know, crack by itself was the cause or the catalyst, it's a slippery slope argument to me. Yeah, there's some people, man. I mean, some people who do the same shit with alcohol to this day. And alcohol is an addiction to me that's far worse. If you want to be frank about it, alcohol addiction is far worse than crack cocaine addiction. It just is. All you gotta do is look that up as well. Alcohol and tobacco are the two substances that lead to the most death. More than any other substances on the planet, bro. And people will readily defend anybody's right to imbibe alcohol on a regular basis.
But there are studies now that say that sugar is more addictive than cocaine. Processed sugar. You know, so again, you're talking about like when you, and that's what I'm saying in terms of today's, like I said, in terms of today's subject matter, right? This issue of being a Kakistocracy, this is something that happens both externally and internally, again, even down to the system. So the system has done it to the people, and then sad and most unfortunately, the people then reflect said thing, like I said, reflect such hypocrisy on each other, right? So again, if you were to put sand on Ben Shapiro, and I started talking about how I started to about modern infrastructure and 21st century infrastructure, right? Then Ben Shapiro could say, I'm spitting nothing but leftist gobbledygook, right? And then you got somebody in Mississippi where that investment would turn his life around, right? Would turn his life around. But for the wealthy guy that has the podcast, right? He has somebody paying him to take that stance, and then the poor guy in Mississippi that's agreeing with it, all he has is the pride of being right. You know what I'm saying? Right. If ultimately in the big picture, if he's even that, if he's right in the discussion.
So yeah, the argument I have made is this: at the end of the day, making drugs, first of all, like if anybody knows anything about the history of prohibition, right? They also know about the history associated with the criminalization of all the other substances, starting with marijuana, heroin, and cocaine. And the reasons for which legislators argued that these substances, these psychotropic substances, had to be made illegal. Primarily, they were all based upon racialized hysteria, okay? Like when it comes to marijuana, it was said that it needed to be illegal because of dealing with Mexican American immigrants and African Americans, and they basically said that it incited violent behaviors and it was the catalyst for having interracial relationships. Niggas smoking like cocaine is gonna give your white bitch the dope dick. We need to make it illegal. I mean, like, this is literally the shit that they said. Literally what they said. If we continue to allow marijuana to be legal, niggas will gonna start fucking your white daughters and your wives and shit like that. And it's gonna incite violence. So we need to prohibit it. Okay? So basically what he used was racial hysteria. And the name is Alice Anslinger. That's the guy who did all this shit, okay? Harry J. Anslinger, okay? He was the first commissioner of the U.S. Federal Bureau of Narcotics, okay? He's the one that was appointed by the government to, be the first drug czar or whatever the case may be, okay? And yes, he was motivated by racial bias, okay, or racial animus. It is what it is. The same for heroin, because there used to be a lot of opium dens in the United States, and these were primarily run by the Chinese, okay? So they use racial arguments against that shit as well, okay? And in the same with cocaine, okay? Niggas gonna dope dick your wife, and then, it's gonna end up, destroying, the social fabric or the moral fabric of the nation. But the biggest addict, you know who the biggest drug addict was prior to the advent of the prohibition of all of these substances? You know who the biggest dope fiend was in America?
White women.
White women, bro. The white woman, bro. And to be quite honest, they still are. But they get the drugs legally. They get fentanyl legally. They get opium legally because they get oxycodone pills legally. They get whatever the fuck they want legally. You think little white ladies that go to the doctor, man, they're gonna be turned down by their physician from getting their dope, man? Fuck no, man. No. So, I personally don't believe, I think the prohibition of drugs and the drug war was the catalyst for more harm than the substances themselves. That's my viewpoint. That's my viewpoint. That's my argument. I'm sticking with it. I'm not going to deviate from that. I know a lot of people believe otherwise, but I don't see the case. I don't see it being the case. Because people who out there, man, I guarantee you, man, I know what the fucking hood is like, and I know motherfuckers that do dope, bro. Real talk. And they still doing dope, bro. Ain't shit changed, man. The same motherfuckers that's doing dope is doing dope, bro. Real talk.
But that's what I'm trying to say, right? So again, when you look at again, why doesn't America have safety nets, right? Because of the racialization of poverty, right? You know, shout out to Linda Taylor, the welfare queen, right? Who they propped up as a under the guise of of being a black woman. But I think, at least to my knowledge of history, and I can be corrected if I'm wrong, right? That Linda Taylor, that she wasn't even, like I said, she wasn't even a black woman, right? And so as a result of that, that's what I'm trying to say. You get some of the poorest of Americans not to vote for policies, or Americans in general, that provide them with the same social safety nets that people, like I said, that people in Europe have. And this is what I'm saying. You have your tax rate that you're paying, right? Again, you have your tax rate that you're paying, and you have crumbling infrastructure, again, and all of these different things, but yet somehow people are divided over social issues, right? People are divided over social issues instead of money. Same thing. I asked one of my friends here, you got all this money that just went out to the Ukraine, right? Again, nothing said, but if you paid reparations to black people, you will start World War III. Why?
Yeah.
So that was that was the question. That was the question that I had. And I told him, quintessential to fixing the problems in Black America, right, is because, again, right now we live in a country where everything is commodified, right? So now fixing the problems that exist in Black America, maybe that could, in a sense, decommodify, America also in certain areas of life, or those aspects of life.
So look, in my viewpoint, like I just believe what MLK said when he said that, a threat to justice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. I really actually believe that. Okay, and the reason I believe it is, if you allow dysfunction, I think, like, you can look at the social body of any country or any community as an organic body, just metaphorically speaking, okay? It's just a metaphor, but when you allow for or permit for dysfunction in one part of the social body to exist, with the idea that you can compartmentalize and quarantine it to an area, because there's porosity in geography in general, it's going to have a spillover effect at some point, unless you quarantine it absolutely, like a prison, so to speak, okay? If you allow for or permit for dysfunction in one part of the social organism, it can have eventually an impact in other areas or part of the social organism. The same can be, metaphorically speaking, just look at a human body. No one says, I'm going to allow for or permit for gangrene to establish itself and set itself up in my finger. And to neglect it, don't worry about it, just let it do what it does. Fuck it, just allow it to sit there, okay?
Correct.
And don't treat it like, fuck it, just ignore it. Eventually, it's going to have an impact. It's going to, what they call, metastasize and start to enter into other areas of the body, okay? All I'm saying is the same thing happens within a social body. If you allow for pathology to exist within one area of it, owing to, policies of spite, whether it be racial animus, whatever it is. Eventually, what's going to end up happening is it's going to expand. It's going to metastasize. Now it's all these damn 7 o'clock, so all these damn notifications gonna start popping up. But so the point is, and I don't think I've never heard Dr. Carl Hart promote, illicit drug use. I've never heard him say, like, if you haven't used heroin, you need to take you need to take some. I've never heard him say that. However, I would say, look, there is like a hyperbolic hysteria surrounding drug use in the United States. It is, man. There is, man. Like, and this is the thing everybody misses, man. The biggest drug addicts in the United States are who, man?
White women.
Now, I won't just say white women, but white people in general. They use more crack, heroin, and all the other illicit substances. They use more of them than any other demographic. They are the biggest drug users. They use and deal drugs more than any other demographic in the United States. Why aren't their communities fucked up? Why don't they have ghettos and shit like that?
Correct, but no, because again,
I'm just asking the question, like, if it's the case that illicit drugs in and of itself destroys communities, why is it that their communities aren't being destroyed by these substances?
Oh, because they're not heavily policed and incarcerated.
So in other words, so which one is it? Is it the incarceration? Is it the surveillance? Or is it the drugs themselves? Bro, I went to one of the most elite high schools in the city of St. Louis. And I'm from the ghetto. Okay? I went to an elite high school. The elitist is one of the most elitist in the city. It's called Christian Brothers College. I saw more dope there at the age of 16 and 17 than I had ever seen in my neighborhood. And I'm from a fucked up neighborhood in Northside St. Louis. Those are the facts. I saw cocaine. I saw pills and shit. I saw pounds of weed. I'm like, what the fuck is this shit? Never seen it before. I'm like, what the fuck is this? These motherfuckers smoking bongs in their house, in their room, in mansions and shit. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Bro, when I graduated from a high school, bro, they had a kegger party at the fucking high school, bro.
That's what I'm trying to say, man. So when you
and what I'm not gonna do here is, look, I understand that there are some guys who want to just call black people degenerate, and in a lot of ways, some shit black people do is degenerate. But at the end of the day, let's look at the facts, bro. Like, white niggas will make excuses for white people, man. And the bullshit that they're engaged in, the injustice that black people or suffer from white folks, man. Some black people will do all they can to give sanction to why this shit is happening. And it's a simple reason why drive-by shootings aren't happening at my elite white school. They ain't stressing over bread. It should be fucking apparent, bro. They not worried about bread, man. They not worried about money. They ain't worried about where their next meal is coming from. But I can guarantee you this, during the era of prohibition, you saw a whole bunch of white motherfuckers killing themselves over territory, now didn't you? Doing drive-bys, walk-ups, and all kinds of shit, didn't you? But that's some shit we don't even want to think about. We don't even factor that into the equation. All we do is talk about black pathology outside of the context of all the pathology that exists inside of the scope and the range of the U.S. citizenry, bro. Them motherfuckers, they got movies dedicated to real life events like the St. Valentine's Day Massacre and shit like that. It was Italians that did that shit. The last time I checked, Italians are officially been incorporated and interpolated into whiteness in the United States, right?
Northern Italians and Southern Italians. Right? Again, the Southern Italians were a type of Negro. Matter of fact, they were considered worse than Negroes.
But I mean, the only point I'm trying to underscore is this. Black people, black culture is, first of all, not synonymous with drug culture. Although, like, because drug culture is synonymous with world culture, man. There's no fucking strange secret, man. Everywhere in the world, motherfuckers do drugs, bro. That's always been the case, bro. From ancient history till now, bro. And there's an excuse going on. What they made it like white people just hide their dope. They don't fucking hide the dope, man. White people don't hide dope, man. They just don't get punished for the shit. They don't hide dope because they don't get punished for the shit. They can do dope in front of their parents, man. They can do drugs in front of their mothers and their fathers, bro. They smoke weed in their rooms, in the house, bro. Black parents don't allow for that shit, bro. How many black parents, okay, it's okay, you're 16, 17 years old, you can smoke weed, and I mean, it's rare, okay, that a 16 to 17-year-old can smoke weed in their grown-ass mother's or father's house. So at the end of the day, all I'm saying is, man, white folks, man, they do the same shit that Negroes have done and been subjected to. They've been, you know, like in terms of drugs, they do more dope, man. They do harder drugs than black folks do, all across the board. And they bounce back. They move on with their lives. They become executives and shit like this. Hold on, what's the name? George Bush. That motherfucker did cocaine.
Yep.
Which not Herbert, but W. That motherfucker was doing cocaine. Barack Obama was doing cocaine. You know the Kennedys was doing cocaine. So at the end of the day, my viewpoint is I agree with Michael Fuller on this one. Black people do bounce back from drug addiction all the time. Or but we take the most, you know, like the most ridiculous cases, like Pookie from New Jack City. Like I'm not saying there were never any Pookies at all, but I mean, like, come on, bro. We all know that motherfucking hype, but there are some hypes out there. But everybody who does dope is a hype? Come on, bro. It's not realistic, man. And I know because I've been in their environment, bro. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen it. I've seen rich people do dope. And quite frankly, I also, not only did I go to an elite white high school, I went to an elite black college. And guess what? Some of the black kids, their moms and their dads were politicians and shit. Some of them, you know, had parents who were like physicians and pharmacists, some attorneys and shit like this. I mean, they had more dope than the poor black kids on campus. Just the facts. Them motherfuckers was doing acid and all kinds of shit. Staying up for days. I'm like, bro, like, I used to smoke weed and drink 40 ounces. That's it. That's all I would do. No more than that. I went to Xavier University, bro. New Orleans, Louisiana. Xavier. Anybody will tell you Xavier is an elite HBCU. They'll tell you that. Number 1 in the nation for putting blacks in pharmacists, in pharmacy school. Number 2 in the nation for putting blacks in medical school. Howard is number 1 for putting blacks in medical school.
Wow.
And I'm telling you what I saw with my own eyes. The poor kids didn't have acid and shit at my school. It was the rich black kids who had access to the dope. Them motherfuckers was popping pills and doing all kind of shit. Shit, Jesse Jackson's son was on dope, man. Don't you know that shit? You don't know that, bro? Jesse Jackson's son was a dope head, man. White boys, man, look, you know how many white boys I know, man, that like even the academy, bro, like professors and shit, that talk about their drug use, bro. Mushrooms, like my man Solid Snakes, shrooms, acid, cocaine. I'm like, okay, bro. Look at it. This motherfucker talking about these substances are heavenly. It's fucking dope, man. It's fucking dope, man.
After you take it off the triple beam, yeah.
Hey, man, have you ever heard of a dude named Delbert Boone, man? You ever heard of Delbert Boone, man? Hold on, let me look this motherfucker up. Delbert Boone. Drug, hold on, let me see. Delbert Boone. 12-step speakers. Delbert Boone came to my school, and the one thing he said over and over, which I don't actually think is actually accurate, but he came to CBC, and Delbert Boone said, "A dope fiend is a dope fiend is a dope fiend." Because you know what? The motherfuckers drinking 12 packs of 6-pack of beer say, well, at least I ain't drinking the 5th of alcohol. And the people who drink the 5th of alcohol say, at least I ain't smoking marijuana. And the people smoking marijuana say, at least I ain't snorting cocaine. And the people snorting cocaine say, well, hey, at least I ain't motherfucking smoking through the rock. And then the people who smoke on the rock say, well, at least I ain't shooting cocaine in my arm. And the people shooting cocaine in their arm say, well, at least I ain't shooting heroin in their arm. And then it goes into a cycle and a cycle. Well, at least I don't drink. So, do I think at the end of the day, man, like the things that the drug, here's the reality, bro. The reality is, and this is just an empirical fact about the world. I want anybody to prove me wrong. I'm offering anyone at any time to prove me wrong. The most lethal psychotropic drugs, and I don't know if you can even call tobacco a psychotropic drugs, but when you initially start smoking it, tobacco, it is psychotropic to some degree. Okay? The things that kill people the most are alcohol and tobacco. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. The deadliest substances that kill more people in the world is what? Tobacco and alcohol. Go ahead, Sand Dog, man. I kind of took over, bro.
Nah, no, but again, look, man, it's sometimes, man, you get things that, like I said, you get things that hit home, right? And I mean that again, the whole illegal or legal drug trade as it pertains to America, man, is one of the best examples, right? When I talked about, we're talking about is this a Kakistocracy? Because again, right, like I said, how ironic it is, how ironic it is that there are people who are legally millionaires off of this stuff, and then there are people who are rotting away, like I said, who are rotting away in prison, right? All based upon the angle of where you're sitting at the fence in regards to how you're dealing with the substance, right? So it doesn't it's something for me that doesn't make sense, to include the fact that, okay, we live in a free market, allegedly, right? We live in a free market society, right? So if I live in a if I live in a if I live in a free market society, right? Why are so why am I going to prison for this goofy shit?
Well, I'm telling you, like, I know the history of it, and for the most part, the history of it is based upon some racist shit.
Yeah.
It just is what it is.
Yeah, because again, right? Because at the end of the day, if that's what you're going to claim, right? Because a free market, again, right? It means right. It means a free market economy is one without government intervention or regulation.
So look,
right? So
I can tell you this. So in 1886, this is like what, 20 years after the Civil War. Coca-Cola had, like, at that time, 9 milligrams of cocaine a serving. Those are the facts. Nobody was talking about very few people were talking about the disastrous effects that Coca-Cola was having on the American population. Now, my viewpoint on it is, if these white people would never have said, let's prohibit this, then you probably wouldn't have the rise of the Crips and the Bloods. You probably wouldn't have, like, the GDs and the BDs like they are in Chicago now. Because a lot of these gangs came to prominence precisely because of their ability to move into traffic drugs, bro. It is what it is, bro. Now, one thing for certain, though, like, and this is one thing even Carl Hart, the dude, talks about, I know this. Don't mix alcohol with, like, drugs like heroin. Don't fucking do it. It'll kill you. And please don't take fentanyl, man. Don't take that shit, bro. Like, if you're not, like, you're not a physician, man, because physicians, they basically prescribe the shit all the time, okay? But they do it within the context of a plan, and they give dosages and shit like that to their patients. It's not something to play around with recreationally, man. But at the same time, like, I'm a libertarian in that regard, though, myself, though. I ain't gonna lie. Like, I just don't understand why some people can say, okay, well, my body, my choice when it comes to a whole bunch, sexual shit. But when it comes to, like, issues of drugs, then we want to, like, oh, well, we got to stop here. It's going to destroy, the community. I'm like, well, I thought ain't y'all the same motherfuckers that say fuck the community? Like, some of the shit, like, it confuses me, man. Like, on the one hand, people want to preserve the community. They don't want to see the community destroyed. On the other hand, they like, fuck the community. Like, this shit is all over the place, bro. At times I don't know how to perceive it, man. I'll be lost and shit. But you know, I don't think, you know, like we should say fuck the community. That's just not my viewpoint. Some of you guys had that viewpoint. That's not mine. Okay. But at the end of the day, man, look, we was just, you know, this is a subject that Sandog came up with. We at the 2-hour mark. If anybody has any questions, you can ask them. If anybody wants to come up and challenge anything you said, come on up. I think that there's a constellation of issues that has created the dysfunction that you see in the black community. And I think that the biggest one is poverty, a lack of infrastructural investment, marginalization of black people, you know, and the creation of ghettos in inner city environments, you know, like through restrictive covenants, redlining, ensuring that black people weren't interpolated into programs like the New Deal. Those are the things that left black people behind and created these festering sores in our communities. I mean, and other things didn't help, like the evolution of gang culture didn't help.
Facts.
It didn't help. But I'm not gonna go off this, you know, this argument that, you know, like it was the crack that did it. Man, nah, man, the shit was already devolving to begin with. I was there. I'm from the hood. You saw it prior to, you know, the crack coming in. It was still fucked up.
Yeah. Yeah. Because remember, right, because before then you had heroin, and then remember when the heroin was hitting, right, that's also around the same time Black America was going through deindustrialization.
Man,
right?
all this shit was like, it wasn't like all of a sudden
no.
Crack came along and just destroyed everything. Like, this shit was already fucked up. Okay, like, I mean, I'm not saying it helped, but I mean, the heroin was popping, that blue magic was popping.
Yeah.
That Frank Lucas was popping, okay? And, you know, the decay, black people were living in housing projects that were made primarily for white people anyway. White immigrants were granted temporary housing through these programs, okay? That the government created. You know, they were supposed to be makeshift housing, temporary housing. But you got to keep that shit up. Like, there's no way that large amounts of people living that close together and the property not being maintained on an ongoing basis, that's going to be a recipe for success. That was never going to happen. That was not going to happen, bro. And white people, man, got to move to the suburbs. I mean, not all of them, but a large portion of them, man. They were offered the ability to move. They were invested in.
Yeah.
They didn't give us the investment. And so guess what? What do you say? There's something called the time value of money, right?
Yes. Correct.
So if you don't have time to allow your money to accumulate more money through compound interest, you're behind.
Correct.
So they got years and 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 years of compound interest accruing based primarily on the real estate that they own. Because that's where most of the wealth in the United States for the average person is concentrated. It's tied up to real estate.
Yes.
So what happens when you aren't allowed to invest in and even if you are black and you invest in real estate, guess what happens? The value of the real estate goes down. If you live there, which is fucked up because you can't even buy into the way that you gain wealth primarily in the United States like a white person can. You can't do it. Because as soon as your black ass moves into the house, the value of the house depreciates. Now, is that fair? I don't think it is, but that's the fact. That's a material, empirical fact about the world we live in. So nobody's gonna nobody's gonna step up and hit the button and put they phallus on the chopping block.
Yeah, nah, man. I think that it seems like today we are all in agreement. You know, saying again, man, it's the whole thing of the snake eating its tail, or self cannibalization. And like I said, so this happens betwixt and between, within and without, from the highest halls of power all the way down to your local classroom, right? This is something that Americans are doing to each other, despite, despite the fact that, there's tons of historical evidence that if you allow one form of evil to persist, it don't, especially if it's targeted at a specific group of people, there will come a time where that issue will no longer be endemic to that group of people alone. Right? So one way or another, right, you're gonna get dragged into it. So we all live in a petri dish, a dish of nonsense. So what Sandog would say is, treat your neighbor as you would treat yourself, as you would want to be treated.
But my last words on this, man. There's a woman, man. You know who she is, Rebecca Kennedy. Okay.
Yeah.
Scholar, does work on ancient classical culture from Greece, Rome to Egypt. Okay.
Yeah.
And ultimately, what she says is this, man. There's a lot of white people in the United States that want to kind of emulate Athens. Because Athens was a city-state that had, in some historical periods, democracy, and others, historical time frames, they had tyrants and shit like this. But it's a place where democracy was given birth, so to speak, quote unquote. And they had a caste system where women weren't involved in politics, and they had slaves who, of course, weren't involved in politics. And they had a class of persons called metics, METICS, and they also were not involved in politics. Yeah. And so there are people in the United States who argue that, okay, well, we need to emulate Athens, and there needs to be a permanent class of persons who aren't able to share in the benefits of full citizenship. So, there are people who, believe that that's the way that we should be, rolling. Like the city-state of Athens in ancient Greece and some shit like that. And, you got to remember, man, Athens didn't have like 300 million motherfuckers, man. On the entire continent, bro.
Correct. Shout out to Socrates, right? Because again, when you get to, how efficient are you when you get to 360 million people plus?
So I think, let me see, Athens at its largest population. Ancient. Can't be no more than like 300,000 motherfuckers, man. I guarantee you. Yeah, 250,000 to 300,000 people, bro. That's a small town, bro. And they say the urban populations of Athens itself during this time period was probably much lower, possibly around 60,000 to 80,000 people, including citizens, medics, and slaves. Okay, so at the end of the day, that's that's what these people, man, want to go to like a citizen-based, society like Athens or some shit like that. And this is their exemplar. So be on the lookout, man, for white boys that got Socrates for their icons, or Solon, or Pericles or some shit like that. And be on the lookout if you see these icons on white boys' avatars and shit. So, because you'll know what they own. That's what they own.
Yeah.
So, anyway, man, y'all be good, man. This is a Friday, man. I know. Is the finals on tonight?
I don't know. I didn't check. Let me see.
Yeah, man. You got one of our frat, man. He trying to holler at me now. Bring him up. What's a good song? He looking for a theme song that's clean for some kids. This motherfucker, they going to Greece, and oddly enough, he's going to Greece, and he needs a song because they on some Jack and Jill trip or some shit like that.
Yeah. And
they need a song that's gonna play for like 90 seconds to represent their cohort while they traveling or some shit like that. So one of them got already picked. All we do is win. So they looking for one like an anthem or something. And I don't know. I haven't had time to think about it. So yeah, Jack and Jill is still alive.
It's still alive.
Still alive, man. That's my best friend too, man. That's my dog right there. I fucks with him. So anyway, man, look, you got any following thoughts, man? Because I'm about to wrap it up, dog.
Nah, that's it, T. That's all I got, man.
All right, man. Y'all be good, man. I'll holler at y'all tomorrow, I guess, man. But don't say we ain't talking about chicks. Hardly nobody come. We talk about like politics. So a bunch of motherfuckers missing. We talk about women and shit. Everybody shows up. But anyway, y'all be peaceful. I'll holler at you.